All right, so this is a list from Games Radar that I'm going to refute because, you know, this is the BS Busters channel, so we bust a lot of bullshit. So let's get to it. Neo. Neo is not an RPG. Um, it's an action game with RPG elements. It is not an RPG. Kingdom Come Deliverance. That's an RPG. South Park Stick of Truth. RPG. Diablo 3. It's more of a arcade style um, hack and slasher on a computer, like a Gauntlet. Persona 5 RPG. Ni no Kuni 2. Jesus Christ, that's not a very good game. But hey, it's your list. Final Fantasy 15, not an RPG. Undertale. All right. So let's see what else. World of Warcraft. Near Automata, not really an RPG. So out of the first 9 games, um, not an RPG, not an RPG, not an RPG, not an RPG. So 9 games, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them aren't RPGs. Monster Hunter World, not really an RPG, not an RPG, kind of an RPG, but not a very good one. But we'll let it. Not an RPG, not an RPG, an RPG, an RPG, an RPG, an RPG, not an RPG. So we've gone down to another 9, and of this 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them are not RPGs. So I mean, we're up to literally half of the 18 games announced are not RPGs. Bloodborne, not an RPG. Not an RPG. Not an RPG. Not an RPG. Okay, so the last 5, um, of the last 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them are not RPGs. So 10 games, 25 games, and they couldn't even be bothered to have a list of all RPGs. Jesus Christ. So I'm going to talk about why this is a problem after the cut. So let's count them off. 1, um, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 games right there that aren't RPGs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 9 games that aren't RPGs. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 13 games that aren't RPGs on this list. What the fuck, man? I don't know what the criteria was to be on this list. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you my list of the best 25 RPGs to play. Period. So, let's get to it after the cut. So, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 for the Game Boy Color. Great game. The programming was actually done by Satoru Iwata for compression purposes. This game is one of the best value propositions for a Dragon Quest game you can get, and you should play it. Yeah. Final Fantasy 1. This is one of the granddaddies of traditional JRPGs, or at least it's, you know, the awkward cuckold granddaddy um, who stepped in with grandma. This game is one of the most important games of JRPG history. So if you ever get a chance, play it. Shadowrun. This game is one of the more unique games for the SNES because unlike typical games of this style that basically embodied a standard JRPG format, this game was more of a computer RPG on a home console. And it's set in the Shadowrun universe, so sword and sorcery, cyberpunk, a great combination. Cyber Knight 1 and 2. These games are another really interesting divergence of RPG gameplay. Unlike the typical sword and sorcery that you see on a lot of games on the SNES, Cyber Knight is a techno RPG where you're basically a group of explorers who get caught in a warp, in a bad warp jump, and you wind up way outside your comfort zone, and then your characters are in giant mechs fighting robots. Pretty badass. This game is an accurate interpretation of the OG AD&D rule set, where you have a party, you go into a dungeon, you fight your way through multiple levels. It was on the Game Boy Advance, SNES, PC, a lot of different things. You can also get it on GOG right now. So if you want to play a classic D&D game, this is the way to go. Oh boy, Wizardry. This is one of the most difficult RPGs you will ever play. Wizardry is basically one of the first attempts to bring D&D to a modern setting, and it shows. But it's not official at D&D. It's a Japanese take on D&D, and it is hard. Wizardry is nut-crushingly hard. It's ball-buster hard. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but this right now is imagery of Wizardry 2, which is a more refined, updated version of the original Wizardry. But, ooh god, it's a tough game. Fallout, the original post-apocalyptic RPG. Not really the original. It's a knockoff of Wasteland, but it's one of the original. And the thing about Fallout is that this game basically is all about player choice. The choices that you make, how you build your character, greatly determine the way the story plays out, which is fucking awesome. I wish more RPGs took this into consideration for their games. Um, the biggest thing about Fallout is that your choices actually affect not only the end game, but how certain things play out, who wins, who loses in certain exchanges and certain side stories. It's a very seminal game in the genre, and if you want to play a quality RPG of old school make and model, Fallout's the way to go. It's on PC, and, well, it's just on PC. So let's go to the next one. Front Mission. Front Mission is on the SNES and the DS, and it's more of a strategy RPG at first, but it's still an RPG because you have a party, characters level up, and how you basically complete your missions and stuff like that greatly determine how the story plays out. Like if you fail to keep someone safe and they die in a mission, the story continues, but that person is gone. So that's not cool. But the cool thing about Front Mission is that it's an RPG where your characters are in giant mechs and stuff, which called Vonzers, which is pretty damn cool. The only thing that sucks is that your main character looks like a neo-Nazi, but what the hell? You can't have everything. So, Breath of Fire 2. This is one of my favorite RPGs for the SNES. And, I could have put Breath of Fire 1. Breath of Fire 1 has a shitty difficulty curve. Breath of Fire 2's difficulty curve is a lot better. So, that's cool. The story is very interesting. The characters are very interesting. It has a pretty damn good sense of humor about some things that happen in the game. So the interesting thing about Breath of Fire is that it retains the dragon transformations, but because of a glitch in the game, they aren't quite done as well. But if you can get past that, this is an excellent game. It's for the SNES and the Game Boy Advance. So, it's a seminal entry in the Breath of Fire series. You can't go wrong with this game. Here we go. Fallout 2. If the first Fallout is akin to a guy who can sing really well out on a street corner, Fallout 2 is that guy getting a group of other three people who are good at singing together, and they sing even better in tandem. A quartet, if you will. And that's a good thing. Fallout 2 has some of the best world building I've ever seen in an RPG, especially if you played the first game in the series. And it's very, very, very impressive what they were able to do. The team that made this game eventually would go on to become Obsidian, and they know RPGs, especially Western computer style RPGs. So you can't go wrong with this game. It's for PC, GOG. Oh, this is a good one. Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2. Now, these games are ball-crushingly hard, but they are really, really good. Um, so basically, these aren't the first game in the Mega 10 series, but these are the first ones that kind of had some mainstream success. In Japan, it never came out here in America because it went against all those policies that Nintendo had in America. No religious stuff or anything like that. This game is chock full of it. So, and demons and anti-church stuff. It's not a game for those who like to be critical of religion. So, good game though. And the coolest thing about this game is that it gave us, this franchise, that it gave us one of the cutest but totally dangerous mascots ever, Jack Frost, who in my opinion is way more badass than Pikachu will ever be. So yeah, Jack Frost would rip off Pikachu's head and shit down his neck. If you want this game, you're going to either have to find the Japanese ROM, the Japanese cartridges for it, or find other ways to get it because it never was localized. Here's another goodie, the Temple of Elemental Evil. Now, right now, this is cover art for the module, for the TSR module of it, but when I think AD&D, which is 2.0, the Temple of Elemental Evil, I did not play the module of this game. I played the PC game version of this game, which is actually astoundingly good. It's got a lot of Dragon Age origins in it, because basically when you create a character and stuff like that, you play through a little origin where you find out where they came from, what their motivations are. This game was created by Troika Games. It's for the PC. I think it may be on smartphones and touchpads, smart iPads, shit like that. But it's great. It's a great RPG, and if you ever get a chance to play it, get it. The coolest thing about the game is that it really translates that old school D&D feel that a lot of games just don't have these days, that call themselves inspired by D&D or whatever. So yeah, Temple of Elemental Evil, totally worth owning, totally worth playing. It's even better with cheats where you give yourself like the best weapons in the game and just murder the shit out of all your enemies. So yeah, recommended. Of course, I can't talk about the Temple of Elemental Evil without talking about Baldur's Gate, created by BioWare, if I remember correctly, back in the day. This is a reissue of the Enhanced Edition and all that shit, but Baldur's Gate is the bigger, more prestigious game in the genre. And it is a damn good game. This game translates the D&D style of gameplay almost directly to gamers, and I friggin' love it. Any real complaints? I have none. If you want to play an old school style D&D game, this is the way to go. Would I recommend the Enhanced Edition if that's what you can get? But if you get a chance to play the original, go for it. Neverwinter Nights. This is widely considered to be one of the seminal works of BioWare back in the day when they were still good before EA butt-raped them and killed them. So Neverwinter Nights is a kind of like the next-gen game of the Baldur's Gate, Temple of Elemental Evil, Daggerdale type games. So it's really good, and I like it a lot. One of the coolest things about Neverwinter Nights was just how well you could basically make your characters, and how you could basically mod it and add new adventures and player models and all this type of fun jazz. Basically, this game has become a model for how to make these types of computer RPGs, Western style computer RPGs. Here we go. Final Fantasy V. This is one of my favorite JRPGs. It doesn't have the best story of all of Final Fantasy history, but it makes up for that with some really humorous scenarios that the characters find themselves in. One of the greatest opening scores I've ever seen, and what I like to call one of the most broken, just completely broken combat systems. Like, this is the game that basically made it so that you would dedicate yourself to finding ways to break, to create just absolute broken characters using the job system. This basically took the job system from previous games, the Earth Crystal, Fire Crystal, Water Crystal, and took it to the next level. This game was ridiculously just so much fun to play, and I wish more RPGs had class systems that were as deep and robust as this game's class system. The only game that comes close is maybe Final Fantasy Tactics, any of those tactics games, but they aren't quite as broken as this one. Super Mario RPG is one of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. And not because it's like the best RPG ever made or anything like that, but because if you want to get someone into RPGs who doesn't really want to get into RPGs, this is the game for them. You know, someone who's hasn't really played a lot of RPGs, this is the game, because it introduces them to everything they need to know for an RPG, while at the same time being approachable. And the sense of humor and characterizations and expansion of the Mario universe makes it totally worth it. This game can be gotten a variety of ways. There's the Virtual Console, there's the, I believe, the SNES Mini, other ways of getting the game. But if you want to play a good RPG to get you into it, this is the one to go with. Lufia 2. This is arguably one of the greatest kind of contenders with the Lufia franchise. It was sold by Natsume to Square Enix, which is a damn shame because Lufia is like one of the better games to actually go toe-to-toe with Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest back in the day. The cool thing about Lufia 2 is that it kind of combines traditional RPG combat with a a world traversal thing where you go into dungeons and literally it's like a puzzle game where you have to move blocks and solve puzzles and stuff like that. The cool thing is that you had this thing in the game called the Ancient Dungeon that had randomized floors and stuff like that. Now, the elephant in the room is this. Square Enix made a re-release of the game that was remastered, had none of the life of the original. Stay away from it. It's for the DS. Ugh, don't play it. Save the Destruction is a wonderful JRPG created by Sega that had a very unique premise and also a very unique, how can I put this, gameplay, where basically instead of trying to save the world, you're trying to destroy it. The coolest thing about the game is that it had a really good battle system where essentially you would knock enemies in the air, then jump up in the air and do combos against them and then smash them back into the ground in order to do massive amounts of damage. The game was outstandingly good. I wish more people had heard of this game. Sega liked it so much that they turned it into an anime. The anime is nothing like the game, so if you have to play the game, it's for the DS. Oh snap, we're getting into the high quality games now, the ones that are higher up the list. Radiant Historia, in my opinion, is essentially the unofficial love child of Chrono Trigger. It's the sequel we would have gotten had someone said make a Chrono Trigger game, but it's on a handheld, so it's limited. You'd get Radiant Historia, and the game is really, really good. Everything you liked about Chrono Trigger is here. The multiple storylines, the choices that affect what's going on later on, everything is here. And it's glorious. This game was released originally for the DS and then re-released for the 3DS. I have both versions. It is an awesome, awesome game. I would advise anyone to get it if you get a chance. The combat system's really interesting in that there's a grid, you knock enemies together, and then you can do combos on that one square that they're all on in order to do massive amounts of damage. Then you can use a special attack to do even more damage. I mean, the game is really, really good. The characters are good, the writing is good, the music is good. Why aren't you playing this game? If you get a chance to get it, to play it, get it, enjoy it, good. Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV, and yes, I said Final Fantasy IV, not Final Fantasy II. Final Fantasy IV is the first Final Fantasy that had a really deep, engrossing story. And it's really good. Now, the main character, Cecil, is kind of an asshole, but aside from that, the game's really good. This game has been re-released on a remarkable amount of platforms. It's on the PS2, or sorry, the PS1, the PS2, the Game Boy Advance, smartphones, all types of things. But this game is totally worth having. The best way to enjoy Final Fantasy IV is the Game Boy Advance port, which is really good. Or, if you're like me and get your hands on the original Japanese version, get that, rip it, and then play it with all of the various content upgrades that were taken out of the US version. So that's always a good one. But yeah, this game is really good. There's a variety of ways to get your hands on it. It's totally worth it. It's one of the best JRPGs ever made. And you should get it if you get a chance. Persona 4. Shin Megami Tensei, aka Persona 4. Persona 4 is one of my favorite Persona games. It had some of the best characters, character utilizations, character motivations, character interactions, really good storytelling. This game is just really that good. I wish more games had this level of well put together gameplay. If there's a downside to the game, and there really isn't, it's that it deals with some rather mature subject matter. This is not an RPG for people who don't really play RPGs. It is a Shin Megami Tensei game, so there are parts of it that are going to be like, God damn, that was rough. But if you can get past that, this game is that good. So if you get a chance, get it. Xenoblade Chronicles X. This is another excellent RPG from Monolith Soft. I put this game above the original Xenoblade Chronicles and above Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The reason why I put it above those two games is because the combat in this game is one of the best forms of combat you'll ever see. This game is essentially the next generation of active time battle system. With that being said, the gameplay is really fraggin' good. And the characters are really well made. And the choices you make in the game, while they don't affect the overall ending, a lot of the choices you make affect the overall gaming world in ways that can be felt. So this game is only on the Wii U, so if you want to play it, you gotta have a Wii U. So this is Baten Kaitos for the GameCube. It was also created by Monolith Soft, and this is one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. This is the JRPG, one of the JRPGs for the GameCube that just basically got me back into JRPGs, aside with Skies of Arcadia Legend and Tales of Symphonia. This game is unique because the battle system is remarkably built around kind of laying out cards into, sequentially making pairs and shit, kind of like playing poker. That being said, the game also has some really other cool shit going on in it. I won't spoil it. It has one of the best spoilers in a game I have ever seen. You will never go beyond this. The sequel sucks. This one, only for GameCube. Tales of Symphonia and Tales of Fantasia. These two games are intimately connected, considering that Tales of Symphonia is kind of an indirect sequel to Tales of Fantasia. They take place in the same world. And events of Symphonia affect Fantasia and vice versa. So these two games are really good. Symphonia has one of the best protagonists I've ever seen in an RPG. Lloyd Irving is just badassness personified. And I don't think the Tales series has gone beyond Lloyd Irving. I heard that the character in Tales of Vesperia is better, but I don't know. Tales of Fantasia has Cress Arthur, or Cress Arthur is the main character. Fantasia and Symphonia have some great graphics, some great story, some great villains, some great characters. They're great RPGs with a really in-depth fighting system. So I would say it's one of the best JRPGs I have ever played. Both of these games can be gotten through various methods. So now this is the portion where we move on to honorable mentions. And the first game in the honorable mentions category is Final Fantasy VI. Now, Final Fantasy VI is, it's one of the best RPGs ever made. And why isn't it number one? Well, it's not quite as good as number one, in my opinion. But it's damn close. Final Fantasy VI has some of the best characters, some of the best characterization, some of the best story, some of the best graphics. It's basically one of the best games ever made, one of the best RPGs ever made. The next game is Skies of Arcadia Legends. One of the best RPGs I've ever seen for the system. Very well made, awesome characters, great story. Only downside? Well, there is none. Rogue Galaxy. This game was made by Level 5. It's basically kind of like the third game in the Dark Cloud series, except Rogue Galaxy takes everything they learned from the two Dark Clouds and brings everything together in a way that feels just good. Rogue Galaxy is what everyone should strive for with these types of RPGs. The next game is coming up next in the slideshow, but Rogue Galaxy is really good, and most people should play it. It's an obscenely good game. And it's for the PS2 and was re-released for the PS4 as a updated version or whatever. The next game in this list is Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is one of the best RPGs ever made. It's Obsidian at their best. This game can be gotten in a variety of ways, but it's really that good. I would advise you get the Ultimate Edition, play it with mods. You'll never go wrong. It's totally worth owning, and play it on PC. The next game is Vampire the Masquerade. One of my favorite titles of all time. Once again, play it with mods, play it on PC, play the Enhanced and Restored Edition where the content that was cut due to time constraints is brought in. It's totally worthwhile. Little known fact, this game was made with the Source engine, and had it come out on time, it would have been the first Source engine game. So basically, this game is really good. If you can ever get the PC version with the updated mods downloaded, it's totally worthwhile. The next game is Dragon Quest III. Dragon Quest III basically did what Final Fantasy V did several years early on the NES. You could create your own party, you could change your classes, and figure out totally broken ways to decimate your enemies. It was just a joy. And this is the game, technically, this is the first game in the first Dragon Quest trilogy of Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3. This is actually the first game in the series. That legendary hero that everyone keeps on talking about, Loto, that's the main character of this game. So yes, this game is, chronologically speaking, the first game in the Dragon Quest series. And that's really exciting if you're a Dragon Quest fan. And it's a really good game. The combination of Enix's know-how and other people's stuff really brought it together. The other game is Dragon Quest VIII for the PS2. This game is really good. Now, I would advise if you're going to play this game to get the the PS2 version of it and not the 3DS version of it, because the PS2 version of it is the best version of this game. There was certain story editing that was done in Dragon Quest VIII that kind of brought it down. We get to the number one after the cut. Was it ever any contest you heard from music? Come on, man. We know that the number one game for this list, the number one RPG was obviously going to be Chrono Trigger. It's fucking Chrono Trigger. The best game ever made. Well, if not the best game, one of the best RPGs. So you can get this in a variety of ways, PC, home console, all types of stuff. This game is fucking awesome. So this is my list of my 25 best RPGs, and these are all RPGs of all time. So give me your thoughts and ideas, your comments on what you think would be, should have been on this list, or what you would make your own list of. So with that being said, that's the end of this. Enjoy the Chrono Trigger music. I forgot to add this. As you know, every weekend, 7:30, we do the BS Busters and Sci-Fi Power Hour-ish sci-fi show on Saturday, BS Busters on Sunday. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe, and participate. Peace.